It's finally game week, and Scott Frost had some interesting comments about his starting QB and the other guys.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Andrew Gluchov to talk a little UCF football. Happy game week, Andrew. It is
Happy
Monday
game week
of week one. And, we're recording on a Monday, but it is actually Tuesday when you guys are watching this. On today's show, we're going to talk about Scott Frost's comments to the media. Andrew, we're going to kind of peruse his opening statement there where he got asked a flurry of questions about QB, talk about his confidence in the team, play calling duties, Cam Fancher, Paul Rubelt, first game readiness, QB leadership. We have a lot to get through, but we have video clips for you guys on today's show. If you want to watch the press conference in its whole, we have that posted to the channel, so you can go to our very last video. I'm going to link it at the end of the video as well so that you guys can find that content. But Andrew, before we get into clip number one, what's your feeling about where UCF stands headed into Jacksonville State prep? This is a game they should win, but how they win it, I think, matters, and how they play in this matters, and, you know, how ready they look matters.
As a little deja vu, I feel like this is 2016 all over again, where, you know, Scott Frost coming in to a team that's coming off a very off season, and expect, you know, I'm feeling the temperature around. Granted, there, you know, it's the first Frost version 2.0, but I'm feeling the temperature of a lot of the fans online, and they're generally like, you know what, I'm kind of at ease. I don't have this really elevated expectation of, you know, we have to go 12-0 or something, or even 10-2. It's okay. Let's just see where this goes. It's kind of weird. I haven't seen UCF fans like this in almost a decade. I think that the team probably feels a little bit free as well of that high expectation that was kind of being pressed on them last year going into the season. And I think that'll help come game time.
I think it'll help too. Look, Scott Frost, as he does as every coach does weekly, face the media today, as he will every single Monday. And he had his opening statement and then was asked a flurry of questions about QB. The media, our fellow media members, were really interested in QB. Let's listen to what Scott Frost had to say in his opening statement and then his subsequent comments about QB.
It's been a good camp. We're just excited that the game's here. I think everybody at this time of year is just ready to actually play an opponent and test yourself. Really pleased with the work that the kids have put in over the winter, spring, summer, fall camp. Now we got to dial it in and be ready to play.
Coach, do you have a starting quarterback? And if so, what made him win the job?
Yeah, we're going to start Cam Fancher. All three kids, you know, I don't want to say much more than that. All three kids did an unbelievable job. Cam's gonna run out there, and it's his job to begin the game, begin the season, and we'll go from there.
Scott, will there be an opportunity for other quarterbacks to get in play on Thursday?
You know, I trust all three, so I want good things to happen for all three of them, and if the situation arises, we'll get some other guys in. We might even have a plan for that, but right now it's Cam's job.
It's Cam's job, but if the situation arises, we might get other guys in. I trust all three. Andrew? He does not. He trusts one a little bit more than the others, and I mean a little bit more than the others. Look, we're going to get to some other QB comments here later in this press conference, but what are your takeaways here from what Scott Frost had to say in that flurry of questions about QB there at the beginning?
Well, short of Pete DeNovoing the game where, you know, you basically fall so spectacularly flat on your face, you know, to start the season, you know, this is Cam's show. And Scott kind of said that, you know, this is Cam's. Unless they're winning big or things go off the rails really badly, really quick, there is no plan for multi quarterbacks. They're gonna run with what they got at the number one with Cam Fancher.
Yeah, look, I agree. It's important that your starting QB is not looking over his shoulders week one, game one, drive one. He's got to have some rope here to make mistakes and continue to learn. But they praise his leadership. They praise his poise. They praised a lot of things about him. He's just got to go out and perform. But look, Scott Frost was asked a question about points of confidence that have carried over from spring. Let's listen to what ball coach had to say about what things he's confident in his Knights headed into game one.
You mentioned how throughout the games this past weekend you saw a lot of mistakes, just the nature of it being the first game of the season. Knowing that there's still a lot unknown about this team in a game situation, what do you feel confident about heading into Thursday's game?
I feel confident about a lot. The preparation's been really good. Feel confident about our athletic ability and just how we come together as a team. You're not going to go through any game and not have ups and downs. And so I really want our team to just stay mission focused and keep attacking and trying to make great plays. Whether good things happen or bad things happen, we got to keep the foot on the pedal and keep pushing forward. And I feel good about where we are, but, we'll get tested both ways with good things and bad things.
Scott Frost acknowledging that they will be tested, but he feels good about where they are. Now, I have said that throughout the spring and the summer that he has displayed a certain confidence in his team's ability to be able to win games now. And he's focused on winning as many games now as he can, not falling into what I would call the trap, Andrew, of thinking so much about the future that you forget about the present. Scott Frost is focused on this team now and the foundation that he's laying now. What did you take away from his comments there about the confidence that he has in his team?
Well, let's start with the first thing, Mo. Momentum is huge. You gotta set a good precedent early on and build on that, ride the wave. If you start against the current, you're just going to tire yourself out. So you want to run in a positive direction. That's what he's trying to build. One of the articles that I recently posted on UCF Night Zone was talking about the contrasting philosophies between Scott Frost's tempo offense versus Kelly's very disciplined defense from on the Jacksonville State side. It's actually a really intriguing matchup from a philosophical standpoint, because one is such a defensive guy, one is such an offensive guy. So if you notice, he said a couple of key things about keeping the pedal, pushing the pedal down. It's about the tempo. It's about trying to prevent that discipline that Jacksonville State's defense is going to be based on from really holding in. They want to be, instead of being forced into slow, sustained drives, which is what Jacksonville State's going to want. They're going to want to hit hard. They're going to want to hit fast and not allow substitutions and create mismatches. So I think Scott Frost kind of reading between the lines, but we already know what kind of game plan Scott Frost has as far as on a macro level. He wants tempo, he wants misdirection and the create those mismatches. He wants to tire you out and not allow you to sub, stuff like that. So it's very counter to what Jacksonville State is basing their game plan on, which is on a very disciplined, structured defense that has some good schemes and pressure. So I think from that standpoint, this is very much on script for Scott Frost.
I think it is as well, too. Look, confidence is important. I think that his team will feel the confidence that their head coach has in them, and that's going to pay dividends for UCF here in game one. But there was more. There's a lot more to this press conference. This was a loaded first press conference where, in our next segment, we'll talk about him being asked about play calling duties, an interesting answer there. More QB, more Cam Fancher, and then some offensive line talk featuring Mr. Paul Rubelt. We'll get to all that and more right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. August 26th is officially FanDuel's Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're crowning your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Take a flyer on an MVP race. I got Patrick Mahomes. Or crown your champion in August. Guys, I'm taking a long shot on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We have a special request from our friends over at Locked On Corporate, and that's to fill out our listener survey. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. That includes Locked On UCF. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. $100 to fill out a survey. Come on now.
I want $100. Give me money.
Let's jump back into our conversation here. As I mentioned before the break, he was asked about play calling, and this is something you and I have talked about on the show a lot about Scott Frost, somebody who cut his cloth as a play caller, and whether he would be diving back into that as a head coach. Andrew, so many coaches, head coaches who are offensive guys, we've seen give up play calling for what I would term CEO duties, but they get away from. We said Gus struggled with this throughout his career. Do I call plays? Do I not call plays? Should I just be a recruiter? Should I be a CEO? Let's hear what Scott Frost had to say about play calling.
I don't think we asked you since you've been hired, but will you be calling plays on Thursday? And if so, how excited are you to kind of get back into doing that?
Yeah, I'm excited just for the game in general. Steve Cooper's done an unbelievable job when I'm doing head coaching things, running the offense. I've been around him a lot, and he thinks very similar to the way I think, and it'll be a collaboration between the two of us.
Play calling. Scott Frost said it would be a collaboration between him and Steve Cooper. What do you make of these play calling comments?
I don't know if I'm suffering from the Mandela effect here, but I could swear I already heard somewhere that Scott Frost was planning on calling plays. Like when he was hired, that was always the plan. So maybe I'm suffering from the Mandela effect here, and that's entirely possible. I was like, but I could swear I've heard this before. This is where, this is his happy medium. This is where, he enjoys the play calling. And, since he and Steve Cooper are in a line, as he said, when I have to do head coaching stuff and have to get away from that, he can step in and help out. But I mean, this is Scott Frost offense, and he's going to lead it the way he wants to. Alex Grinch is going to maintain that defense and allow Frost to do his thing on the offense. I would think there may be times if maybe the defense is struggling or something and they need some serious adjustments that he may back off a little bit and allow Steve Cooper to step in. But I think for the most part, it's going to be Scott Frost's show when it comes to play calling.
I agree, but the collaborative play calling, I'll be if you get a chance in the post games. For those of you who don't know, Locked On UCF is credentialed for this season, and Andrew Gluchov will be covering for us live on site. Proud to announce, but I would be interested, Andrew, to hear how that collaboration works. We've heard some interesting things at some other schools I cover about one coach kind of scouting first down, another coach scouting third down. How does that collaboration work between him and Steve Cooper? I think that's something I would love to hear more about. But look, he was asked another question about QB. Let's talk about what else Scott Frost had to say about Cam Fancher.
What did Cam show you in spring and then carry over into fall camp that helped you make your decision?
Again, I don't want to talk about one guy too much. Cam's done a really good job with just command of the offense, control of everything. He's doing a good job turning broken plays into positive plays. But all three guys have done well. So it's Cam's job right now.
Scott Frost, I don't want to talk about one guy too much, but it's Cam's job. They've all done a great job. Blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't want to talk about one guy too much tells me that he is leaving the door open, that he may have to pivot. So he doesn't want to get hyper focused on Cam in week one until Cam goes out there and shows what he can do. And that's what I keep taking away from these comments. We've got, believe it or not, we have more QB comments to come on this show. But talk to me, man. Like, how are you taking this comment about Cam?
2 words: dual threat. That's what I got out of it. Broken plays. So yeah, he's willing to tuck the ball and run, but he's not run first. So the broken play means things have fallen. Obviously, things have fallen apart, but that doesn't mean he forced things to fall apart. That was one of Jacurri Brown's problems, where he would have such a tendency to run first. It was before the play broke down. Yeah, and in the case of Tayven Jackson, not as much of a runner. So I was like, okay. And we said before, about Cam Fancher, he checks the most boxes as far as that goes. You have one who's run first, you have one who's pass first, and then you have him in the middle. And he's the closest thing skill set wise to McKenzie Milton, who's his quarterback coach. So the fact that Fancher ended up getting the starting job, when you look at it that way, it doesn't come off as surprising. But yeah, because none of them really jumped out. Like, they all have glaring flaws. In the case, Fancher is a little turnover prone. And by a little, I mean a lot. And you've got to leave the door open if, again, falls flat in his face, not ready for prime time here. You move you open the door for someone else. But as he kind of, pivoted back at the end, this is Cam's show basically, until he, proves otherwise.
I agree 100%. Look, somebody's got to protect Cam, and an interesting question. Again, a lot of good questions asked by our fellow media members in this press conference. So kudos to them for giving us lots of great content. But he talked about maybe the possibility of, or he was asked about the possibility of an offensive line shuffle. Let's hear what Scott Frost had to say about his offensive line, and one in particular, Paul Rubelt.
Similar to that, does that change the alignment of the offensive line at all? I know Paul's worked at right tackle last year, and he's spent time at left tackle this year during camp, with Cam being left-handed, and the different blind side. Does that change it at all?
No, we don't want to move Paul just for something like that. So, I do feel like we got guys, including Paul, that can play multiple spots, and if the need arises, he could be on the left or right. But all those position battles were independent of one another, and it would be a crime for me to play somebody in a different spot or a different person because of the outcome of a different position race. So there'll be several spots where multiple people get to play, and we're going to have a rotation. But I think we're settled in pretty well, and we'll probably release the depth chart here in the next couple of days.
The presence of a left or right-handed QB not affecting the offensive line protections there. He mentioned Paul Rubelt able to play multiple positions along that line, but he thinks it's a crime to move a guy at a position for a reason like this. I actually really like this answer by Scott Frost. I like the idea that if you have a left tackle, the next guy that steps up is the backup left tackle instead of shuffling guys around the line. To me, I've seen that wacky carousel work out worse more times than not for a lot of coaches. What do you take from his comments here, Andrew, about Paul Rubelt and the offensive line potential shuffle based on who's the QB?
He could not have answered this better. This flat out. This is how you answer that question. You can't create upheaval. A lot of these players, they worked on this position group the way they are. They've competed. Yeah. You're set in a certain way. You're looking at certain things. Your bodies. You develop muscle memories. To throw that up in up in the air. I mean, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Offensive line is all about chemistry, and that's all that's going to do is mess up chemistry. And the other thing is, it would be an insult to your right tackle to move Paul over.
Yeah.
They all competed. They all won their respective spots, and you got to wait until things start playing out. If the right tackle position ends up being a major liability, okay, now you have some film to go off of. You can make a decision that you can't change that before you ever take a regular season snap, because there's no preseason in college football. It's not like the NFL where you have a chance to see real game time, stuff, and you can make a decision based on that. The first time they take a snap on Thursday, that's it. That's when they finally get to see, okay, is this going to work or is it not? So, you've gotten this far, you let it ride, and then you gauge on how it's going. I mean, that's proper coaching right there. So I believe that Scott Frost could not have answered that question any better than he did about leaving things the way they are. It's fair, it's smart, but it still leaves the door open. You've got it's a long season. If you got to make changes, you make changes, but you got to start somewhere.
Could not agree more. Look, we've got more to get to on today's show. So before we get to the break, I'm going to let you guys know we're going to talk about first game readiness, more QB, and the team buy-in at this point in the process for Scott Frost. But we'll get all to that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Rougiette, guys. You probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to get Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, 15 minutes, which is just enough time for you to get ready for the boom boom. Effects can last up to 36 hours, which is a really long time, state of readiness, but that's a lot of potential fun. So you can stay confident in control when you're in the moment. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Look, you can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment with their special someone. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege. I'm going to spell that out for you guys. RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Is UCF Rougiette ready for game one?
No medicine needed.
Scott Frost was asked a question about his first game readiness. Let's listen to what the old ball coach had to say about his team being Rougiette ready.
Coach, you're at the climactic point of camp, right on the cusp of the season. How game ready do you feel this team is at this point?
Yeah, you get to a point where you practice so much that, you need to see what they can do in a game. And there's a saying that's true: you don't rise to the occasion, you fall the level of your training. And I feel like we've trained well, but everything changes once you're out there on the field. And I just want our guys to be ready to attack, play with no fear of failure, and just play hard. You can see around the country there's a lot of mistakes happening, first game mistakes, and just a few games that have already happened. We're going to try to limit those, but understand those are going to happen. And effort usually makes up for a lot of that. So I just want to see our guys come out and play as hard as they can.
Look, mistakes are going to happen, but he understands that. He understands what comes along with a game like this. He just wants his guys to come out and play with effort in week one. And that's, I think that's the most important component of being ready for game one that we can talk about is effort. What kind of effort are we going to see from the UCF Knights in game one? But also not just effort, but discipline. Is this going to be a disciplined defense under Alex Grinch? Is this going to be a disciplined QB under McKenzie, Milton, and Scott Frost? Is this going to be a disciplined offensive line that will protect the QB but not get silly false starts and silly penalties? How disciplined is UCF going to be in game one? I think Scott Frost thinks that they're going to be fairly disciplined to start, and if they're not, they're going to get it fixed.
Well, I mean, that's what first games are all about. I mean, granted, all the Rouget jokes just write themselves on what he said. But the thing is, and an old music teacher once told me, you perform at 80% of how you practice. So if you practice really well, you're doing the right things. Game time should translate. It should do well. One of the things that we've talked about numerous times was the optimistic attitude and energy that Scott Frost is bringing to the locker room. That translates to how hard you practice and the mental state you carry going into the game. Football is a mental game. If you're mentally defeated, you're gonna not do a good job. So the fact that Scott Frost is getting these guys ready to run through a brick wall willingly, that will translate to positive energy going into the game. And that should help them, do better on the field. So, you're also at home. We can't discount the home field advantage here. You're at home at the Acrisure Bounce House. It's, a great home field advantage right there. And against, a smaller school like Jacksonville State. It could be a intimidating place. It may not be the biggest stadium. It's 44,000 and change, but it's designed to be loud, and it has gotten very loud. You ever want to see how loud it is? Go remind yourselves of the 2018 game against Cincinnati and how that game started. I mean, it was definitely loud. These fans are perfectly capable of doing that, and it can throw off opponents and give more positive energy to UCF players. So, again, it starts with the positive, energy that Frost and the coaching staff's given these players as they practice. And then they're going to get fed even more by the fans come game time. And, at that point, you're expecting, the roof to blow off as they're ready to just run through a brick wall.
I could not agree more. Look, this team seems to really want to play for this coach. I think that attributes to their state of readiness more than a lot of things that you would generally think that people are trying to attribute to. Are they ready? They want to play for this coach, and that's where it starts. But we've got a couple questions to finish today's show. Buy-in, right? Part of that readiness is buying into the system, buying in to what Scott Frost and we've talked repeatedly about the culture keepers. I'm going to continue to say this term until Scott Frost is either no longer the coach or he's won a championship at UCF. Culture keepers are helping others to buy into what they're doing. Let's listen to what he had to say about his team buying into the Scott Frost way.
You've talked about success being defined by progress and a reliance on the rise and conquer mantra. How do you feel the team is continuing to buy into that even at this point? And do you feel like it's a season-long adjustment, staying patient and making those incremental improvements?
Yeah, I mean, we're a lot better than we were at the beginning of camp, and we started camp a lot better than we were in spring. But we got to keep getting better throughout the season, and that's on the field and off. So we'll keep putting the guys through what we think we need to put them through to continue to improve. And as good as we are in game one, hopefully it's a lot better game 6.
Important comments here from Scott Frost talking about his team continuing to get better from camp, spring ball into fall camp. And, the mantra, like continuing into the season, they're buying into that right now. And I think that, look, man, the recruits are feeling it. We talked about our friend Kane Archer being the only 3-star All-American on Rivals preseason All-American list. Guys like him, even seeing from the outside looking in, this is something I want to buy into.
Yeah, the fact that they took away Kane Archer's 4th star is a Travis Shem mockery. Just absolutely a joke. The hope is that he kicks butt and gets that back as he should. But, as far as what Scott Frost said, you always have to improve. Complacency is the enemy of progress. And if you don't continue to try to innovate and improve, you're going to start losing because everyone else is trying to innovate and improve. So you can't rest on your laurels. Yeah, you may win this game 63-0. It doesn't mean you don't, sit back. No, you look at the things that worked, you look at things that didn't, because there's always things that didn't. There's always mistakes. There is no perfect game. Even the closest thing to a perfect game still has areas of improvement, even if they're smaller things. So you do the film study and then you focus on those things. You're still with a team that's learning the culture, learning the offensive style, learning the defensive style. They've only been together a handful of months. So there's still a lot of growth going on here, and especially how many new players there are to this team versus a normal off season, which would be half of the number of players that have come in. So again, complacency is the enemy of progress here, and I think he's making a very good point of they're always going to have to be looking forward and trying to improve.
Look, the last question here, talking about QB leadership and maybe the guys gravitating toward one QB or the other. This is one of the more interesting questions I think that was asked about QB. Let's listen to what Frost had to say about whether the players gravitated toward one guy.
You mentioned many times throughout camp that this would be a player-led battle and that the team would also gravitate towards the starter. Did you start to see that towards the end of fall camp?
Really, it was neck and neck right until the very end. And we got to a point we had to make a decision, I think, in the probably last 4 or 5 days before we decided. I think Cam probably played the best in those, but that's not taken away from anybody else. I got a ton of confidence in several other guys.
He didn't answer this question, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Look, did the team kind of gravitate toward one guy? Well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, look, Scott Frost, I get it. You don't want to overly praise.
Not a good question to answer.
Yeah, right. Like, so it was. I thought it was an interesting question to ask, right? And we understand as media sometimes when we ask these questions, we don't always get a straight answer, but we ask anyway. Look, at the end of the day, Cam Fancher won the job, and he won the job because the coaches think that at least initially he gives them the best chance to win in certain ways. Now, the door is open, and it's up to Cam Fancher to shut the door on all these questions. He's going to get the first shot to shut the door. That's what all this QB talk, this is what I take away from it. Cam Fancher gets the first chance to go in and say, nope, we're not talking about any more QBs. I'm the QB. It's my job, and you have to take it from me.
I'm glad Scott Frost didn't answer this question because from a locker room standpoint, nothing good would have come from it. You don't want to create division.
Yeah, they all really like Cam. He brought them chicken wings on Thursday.
Seriously, hey, Rook, go bring the popcorn, or else we're going to popcorn your car. But here's the thing. We back in 2022, there was a little bit of division within the fan base over John Rice Plumlee and Mikey Keene of who's going to be the starting quarterback. And I think Gus may have been a little too loose on some of the things he said. And, things just never really got better. This is a case where, you just got to be smart about, being, sometimes you got to be a little tight-lipped. And that's something Scott Frost is actually pretty good at. He can talk and not say anything. It's the power of gab, where you can talk and just not say anything. And I think he tap danced around that one pretty well, because that's not a question you really want to answer, but I understand why it was asked. And I definitely don't fault the question for being asked. It's just, you can't get that question. But as far as the locker room goes, winning begets winning. If Cam Fancher comes out there and does a great job, I think any loyalty issues that could come up are going to subside, because winning is a great antidote to those things.
Could not agree more. He did sidestep the hell out of that question. Look, I get it. That's the signs of a smart, intelligent coach that understands that sometimes you got to say things in a manner that doesn't get your players all riled up against you. So that was press conference number one. That was just a press conference number one. I cannot imagine what the rest of the season is going to be like, Andrew. But, my final thoughts on this one, it's time to go play football. All this talk, I think Scott Frost is just ready to get out there, and he's excited to test his team against Jacksonville State, see where they're at, and then get back to the drawing board to see where they need to improve and continue to solidify those position races, not just at QB, but everywhere else as well, too. Understand who your workhorse back is going to be. Understand who your number one wide receiver, who your go-to receiver is going to be. Praise the wide receiver room, but there's a ton of new faces in there. We've covered that on this very show. This is going to be a fun ride this season. We're going to be here for it all. Andrew Gluchov from UCFKnightZone.com. You can go check out his written work there and my written work. Also, do us a favor, support our friend Stephen Leonard, his Substack. He is a contributor here. We cover his work on Locked on UCF as well, too. Friend of the show, so we appreciate him. Andrew will be back tomorrow to talk more Locked on UCF, guys. So I want to thank everybody for joining the show today and making us your first listen. For your next listen, go check out our friends at the Portal Show. Our friend Brian Smith has the latest in going-ons and portal signings, everything that's happening in college football right there in one place for you on the Portal Show. You can find the Portal Show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us here tomorrow on Locked on UCF.